So here we are on Draw a City Part 2. We're going to add some things into it. I did go ahead and put in the sidewalks. I just went ahead and made a second parallel line. So I just moved my ruler in like this and then drew a line here and here and repeated that going around. The nice thing is if you do it on both streets, you can get a much nicer angle to it. To get the dotted line down the center, the easiest way to do that is just kind of eyeball what you think the center is and then do it in two spots, one each side. Then set up your ruler so that you know that you're in the middle of the road, because otherwise it's hard to tell. And you could measure these and do them like every 1/4 inch or something, but I just go ahead and could just kind of freehand it, leaning my pencil against my ruler and trying not to leave too large spaces in between it, stopping at the corner, and then starting again on the other side. So we're actually looking down on the city today, and what we're going to do is add more buildings as well as some doors and windows on how to do that. So this is the roof of our buildings. We did put in one little alley. I'm going to go ahead and stick one over here too, just to review that. So what we're thinking about is we're not sharing this wall. These two share a wall, but we're going to put one in here that does not share a wall. So remember, using your vanishing point every single time. I'm going to put in a new line here. Then remember that we want the top and the roof of all buildings to be parallel with the corners of the page. So no matter what, I want this building roof to be parallel with the side of the page. So I look at the side of the page to see if my ruler is parallel. And then I go ahead, is it parallel here too? I look pretty close. And I've got my roof here. And then I end up finishing off my roof. Really, I like to be able to see this space here so that I know. I can always do a little bit of erasing. And then I look at the bottom here. How wide is this compared to here? So I keep it very, very parallel with the top and bottom of the page. And there is the roof of this building. Now, I'm going to need to erase right here because that is going to be an alleyway. So if you remember right, we go to the corner here and we can put in the rest of this building just by drawing a little straight line there. So if you were walking down the street here, you could turn here. This is one plane or one side of the cube, and then here's the other one. So all I have to do is hit this corner and this vanishing point. So I'm at this corner and that vanishing point, and if I run into a building, I just stop because I cannot see through a building. So that is how much I would see. To get this other corner, I go vanishing point to corner, and when I hit the sidewalk, I'm going to stop. So now I have 3 buildings on that side, 2 on this side. 3 total buildings, 3 total buildings, 3 total buildings. Well, what if I just wanted to stick a random building in over here? They don't always have to be sharing walls, and they aren't always crowded. Sometimes there's parking lots in between. If you start with the roof of the building, you can put it anywhere you want. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a building roof here. My ruler was parallel this direction. Now I'm going to go the other direction. And sometimes I just use both sides of the ruler. That way I know for sure that it's parallel. I'll just finish that little block off. So this is my roof. So look at it in reference to your vanishing point. And if you guess that I can see 2 sides of the building, you're correct. But what happens? What if I run into another building? You don't want to see it. So once I hit that building there, I have to stop. So vanishing point to corner of the building here. Now, when it comes to this corner, when I hit the sidewalk, I would stop. So as soon as I hit the sidewalk, I would stop. Now this one's a little tricky, but it's just because you don't see much of the building here. Vanishing point, corner. The rules are the same. It's just you're not going to see much of it. So if you looked here, this is the one side of the building, this is the other side of the building, and this is the top of the building. So one line is missing here. And the line is, we basically created maybe a parking lot, something else is right here. So we have to hit the bottom of the building and make it parallel. Remember that the bottom of the building is parallel with the top of the building. The bottom of the building is parallel with the top on all of these buildings. So you could go ahead and leave that sidewalk line in, or you could just erase it depending on how you thought it looked. So you could actually go in here if you wanted to. You could come around here and make the sidewalk go around, and it would look like a little street here, or a little big alley, not just a footpath alley. This one might be more for your feet. This one could be an actually big area. Now, if you think about this logically, if this is the bottom of the building, your cars would have to be smaller than that, or your car is as long as a building at the base. But because it's art, you don't have to be super specific. This is not a diagram where people are going to draw a home from it. This is more artistic. But looking at the bottom, you want it to make sense. If you put in a car here, it should be smaller in length than the building. So that's pretty small to draw with. So if I just go ahead and put in the trunk line and the hood line, you really can't see much of this little tiny car on the road. So you have to kind of look at your the bottom of your buildings to kind of see how big the cars would be. Now, since it is art, you could go bigger than that, though, just so you know. Well, if the cars are that small, you might want to turn this into a double line. Let's see what I'm doing. And it helps if you start thinking about what city streets look like, and how many roads there are, and how many lines there are. So this is like 2 lines in the road. Well, then what I want to do is I want to make this like a 4-lane highway. So I'm go ahead and putting these guide dots in the middle like this. And so when I come in here with my ruler and line up the dots, then I know where to put the little dotted line down the middle of the road. So I end up with 2 lanes going one direction and 2 lanes going the other direction in this drawing, which will make a lot of sense to you once I go ahead and remove this ruler here. Look, so I've actually got 2 rows here and then 2 rows here. Well, that's going to run into my little car. So I'm going to go ahead and move my little car here. The hood line, the trunk line, the top of the building. That's about all you're going to see from that much distance. But I could put lots of little cars in. Or I could make one look more like a van with a little cab in the front. You don't see much. Remember, you're looking from the top. So you could add a bunch of little cars going along the road. And then you could come over here and make this a 4-lane highway. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the more time you spend in a city, the more you're going to recognize the little way things look. In the city, to have 4 lanes going one direction is not uncommon. But you could also have 2 lanes right next to each other going one direction and 2 lanes right next to each other going the other direction, which is what we have in this picture. So this is just 2 lanes. This is actually 4 lanes. So these are going this direction. But if you think about it logically, the right side of the road in America is where we would draw. So our cars going forward would go on this side. But in the way our drawings are, you can't really tell if they're going forwards or backwards. So you don't really want to deal with that unless they're moving, and they won't be moving in this picture. So you can put them any direction because you can't really tell what direction they're going. So there's my little city. There's my sidewalk. There's my 2 lanes going this way. I could have a little car coming out here. And I could have one turning in. like this, like it's making a turn and coming into this area here. So let's look at our buildings a little bit. We might want to add a swimming pool on top of one. Remember, whatever you add, you're actually looking at the top of the building. So if it has a little diving board, you're looking down on it. If you have a chair in a picture, you're really just seeing a seat, maybe a teeny bit of the back because you're looking down on it. Maybe a round table. You could turn it into an umbrella on the top, so you're looking down on the umbrella. Maybe there's a little chair here and a little chair here. You might plant a little garden on top of the buildings. Okay, so notice how we can add random buildings anywhere in this picture. We can add little alleys in between them. We can add our cars and our dotted lines. People ask me always about stop signs and traffic lights. Well, a stop sign would look like a slit because you're looking down on it. And a stop light would look like a little tiny square box, which would be hard to tell what that is and make sense in your drawing. You could put it in, but nobody's really going to know what it is. Okay, let's talk about doors first. Now, doors at the bottom of your skyscrapers, these tall buildings would have to touch the ground. So you know the bottom of the building is here. The top would be somewhere in this area. So if you think about a door, it is parallel with the ground. So you want to be parallel with that line. For example, if I draw a horizontal line here, this is the top of my doorway. Maybe this doorway here is a little taller. Maybe this doorway here is a little shorter. I'll put in 2 doorways here. Now, this is just the top of the doorway. The bottom is the ground. How do you find the sides? The same as the way you put the sides the building is in. Because if you think about it, if you draw a building, the sides of the doors would be parallel with the sides of the building. And since they go to your vanishing point, so would these. So let me show you what this looks like. So I put one side of my doorway in, and then I put another side of my doorway. And you can see that here. And if you wanted to put another line down the middle, that could be a double door. This is a pretty tall door here, but you know, it is a shopping center or it is a skyscraper. It could have a huge glass above it, so you might see it quite big. You could divide the space. Remember, if you divided it, you would be doing it horizontally. Okay, because remember, this is parallel to this, is parallel to this. So the bottom of the door, all the lines are the same direction. The vertical lines are going to your vanishing point, okay, when you put in your door. So here we go. I can put in my double doors here. Both of these are going to go towards my vanishing point, like this. Now, it is really tempting to just freehand draw things, but you will get them more accurate if you use your vanishing point every time. That's kind of up to you. So I would do the same thing for these doors here, but this door is going, the top of this doorway is going to be parallel with this line, just like the top of the building. So you know it would go that direction. So if I go in to put the doorway in, and then on the other side, remember that the top of the doorway is parallel with the ground. So this doorway would be parallel with that line. This doorway would be parallel with this line. So see, the horizontal lines are all parallel to each other. The horizontal lines are all parallel to each other if you were looking straight at it. So let's look at this one here. This is the bottom of the door, so the top of the door would go the same way. Okay? This is the bottom, so the top would go the same way. If you give yourself just a little sketch line like that, knowing which direction things are supposed to go, it'll help you not to go the wrong direction, and it'll help you to get the lines correctly. You still want to go to your ruler to put these in so they look nice and clean and they look very realistic. So here's my doors on the front of my skyscrapers. When you get to a skyscraper that's kind of far from the vanishing point, it almost looks like it's laying on the ground. See this one over here? Now, it has to be parallel to that line. So if I take my ruler, I can tell that it has to be parallel here. Whoops. Sorry. Lost a little bit of space there. So parallel. There we go. Now, you can tell, keep doing that, you can tell looking at this that this line is parallel to this line. But man, when you put that in, it's really angled. And it's because of the angle you're looking at it, though. It is correct. It's just very angled because it's way to your side. This is more almost right under your eye, but this is way at an angle from your eye. You're looking very far to the side. So then we get all your doors in, and then the next thing is your windows. Now, a lot of skyscrapers, we'll put windows on this wall. You don't really have to be super perfect with these, but think about this. If you make this spacing all the same, so all these lines, this space equals this space equals this space equals this space equals this space, you will get them all correct. If you decide that you want to make them very perfect, all you have to do is measure out these lines. Don't forget to stop when you get to the street and move your ruler every single time and use that vanishing point. So now you can see them all the way across. Now all I have to do is go in now and keep them parallel. So I'm going to go in and keep this parallel with my road, as it's really kind of tricky. Parallel with your road. Now as you get towards the bottom of the skyscraper, the windows start to look closer together. And the reason they do is because they're farther away from you. The more you get close to this line, the closer they get. If you notice, these are a little bigger and I'm just getting a little bit smaller. There are some technical ways to get that absolutely perfect, but we're not going to add that in today because it's really not necessary when you're an artist. When you're an architect, it is necessary because you can't say, okay, build this building and give or take a few inches. You can't do that, otherwise your building falls apart and you get sued. So you have to be very careful. But when you're an artist, they're not going to build a house or a skyscraper from this drawing. You're just communicating. So a lot closer to farther apart. You would do the same thing on every building. So you would measure out how far apart you want your windows, like this. And then you would go from this point to vanishing point, this point to vanishing point, and so on, until you got your vertical lines going up your building. And you're like, well, these aren't vertical. They are if you were looking directly at the building. These lines are if you were standing in front of the building, they would be vertical. But we are like in a helicopter, and it's also called a bird's eye view. We're looking down on the building. So all of them would go to your vanishing point, and then the tops and bottoms would be parallel with the top of the building and the bottom of the building. Okay, lots going on here. This could take you a long time to put in all these buildings and all these windows, depending on how much detail you wanted to put in. You could have a lot of work to do just to do with the buildings that you've drawn. But the more you put in these pictures, the cooler they look. You could have Spider-Man stuck to the wall over here. You could really have a good time with this lesson. You could have a tightrope walker going across here. Don't forget you would be seeing the person from standing on the top of their head with their arms out. Maybe they're holding a pole. So they would be from the top. So, I mean, you could add a lot of things to your picture that could make it your own and have fun with it, thinking about what you see in a building. Every so often I have people who want to write on the buildings. Well, if you want to write on the building, let's say we're going to turn this into bonds, okay? Well, think about the lettering. The lettering would go straight across horizontally, so it would definitely need to be parallel with this line. So if I make a line here, and I make a line here, like this, my letters would go towards my vanishing point. So if I decided, okay, I'm going to do 3 letters, I need 4 lines, okay? Oh, let's do 5. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is very similar to what this is. Okay, so we're creating different spaces. So then you could write in your spaces when you go to your vanishing point. So if you look at this building here, I'm going to turn it right side up. The actual letters, why don't I do this in ink so you guys can see it really good. Let's just say I wanted to write bonds. I would actually write it inside the spaces like that. You got to realize it's going to be at an angle. So if I erase all that, you see how it's at an angle up there? So I'm going to go over here to this one, and I'm going to write PG&E. P, G, and E. Having those little boxes helps you write things in perspective. Remember, perspective is the way you see it 3-dimensionally. So there's my PG&E, here's my bonds. So yes, you can write them on the building, but you have to do it correctly. So if this was your building too, these lines would just go the same direction. They'd meet at the corner if you had a bank of windows. And they would be parallel to this road on the other side of the building. See how they're wrapping around? And then the vertical lines would go back to your vanishing point. Back to your vanishing point. You can have a really good time with this lesson, creating all sorts of fun things, really adding to it. So we've talked about windows, we've talked about cars, traffic patterns. What if I had a building that I thought was at an angle? I always get this question. So what if I had a building over here and it wasn't square with the page? Because it actually, the roof of the building was very different. It was turned at an angle, and so it wasn't squared with all the other buildings. Well, the rules are the same. What you have to do is take your ruler and watch what I'm going to do. The first corner you hit, there it is, first corner I hit, I'm going to draw a line and I'm going to hit the road. Okay, then I'm going to go the next direction. The first corner I hit, I actually hit that one. When I hit a building, I stop. The second corner I hit, I'm actually going to hit the corner of that building, and I stop. So if you see this, okay, this is correct, this is correct, this is correct, but we have a problem down here. We cannot see the bottom of the building. Well, it's not going this direction, it's going this direction. So it would actually be at an angle. The top of the building is parallel with the bottom of the building. So I can put some weird shaped or weird angled building in as long as I follow the rules. Now, where's the bottom of that building? You can't see it. It's behind that building. So this is one side, this is the top, this is another side. That building is at an angle. Well, what if I have a building and it's a triangle on top? Let's create one. Whoa, what's going to happen with that? Same thing. I'm going to go to my vanishing point. When I hit the building, I draw a line. Go to my vanishing point. When I hit the building, I draw a line. Well, this one I can't see. It's on the other side of the building. So that is all I'm going to see. I can't see where it hits the ground, so I have no ground line to put. This one I can see where it hit the ground. This one I cannot. So that building's done. That's all you can see of it. Let's try another one here. Okay, so corner to vanishing point, corner to vanishing point, corner. Let's change this just a little bit. I want to show you something. Here's my next one. So check it out. Corner to vanishing point. Hit the sidewalk, stop. Corner to vanishing point. Hit the sidewalk, stop. Oh, look, I can see that side of the building. Okay, now I got a problem. There's something wrong here. Okay, this one's correct. I hit the sidewalk. That line is parallel with that line. But what about that line? It's not quite parallel. If you take your ruler, though, and you put it on the same line like this, and just move it till it hits the road, and there it is. This line becomes parallel to that one, and this line would not exist. I sure have an interesting building there. Okay? Hope you enjoyed this and that you have some fun with it and you keep coloring and adding more things to it. And here's the end of our drawing, bonjonart@gmail.com. If you have more questions, we will be doing some other one-point perspective. I hope you guys spend some time and do a really great job on these and maybe even color them. Okay, see you next lesson.